I am a high school English teacher. This is my 26th year in the classroom. I'll be honest, I have thought about not teaching anymore. Leaving the profession is pretty daunting. I don't know what else I would do. The energy level that it takes to do the job effectively, I don't know how long I can maintain that. I had a day that I just had a hard time letting go of. And when I went home, I just kept thinking about all of the students that I had, the interactions I had, the decisions I made. And what I often do when I have a day that I have a hard time letting go of, whether it's because of teaching or any other stressor, I write. And I just kind of get it out on the page, and that helps me kind of set it aside then so that I can move forward and not have it spinning around in my mind quite so much. Am I becoming the old cranky English teacher who nitpicks and loses sight of the big picture? Am I too tired for this job? Am I becoming too cynical? Are my standards too high? Haven't I lowered them since I began teaching all those years ago, though? Should I have? Nobody goes into teaching thinking it's going to be easy or thinking you're going to get rich. You know what you're signing up for. The challenges when I first started teaching were how to present a lesson in a meaningful way, how to adjust a lesson on the fly. You know, like I said, when you're teaching and you realize, this isn't quite landing. Should I work through lunch or head to the workroom? Will I feel better if I have half an hour of adult conversation or if I get more of these papers graded? Do I need to make any hard copies for the handout next period? Did I remember to upload the video and the Google Doc to Google Classroom for the kids who are absent? I think what has changed the job in the last few years, prior even to COVID, there's been a lot more criticism of teachers, if I may be frank. I feel that when I first started, the attitude was, well, they're professionals and they know what they're doing and they're doing the best they can. And they have my child's best interest at heart. And there was a lot of trust. Society is starting to question teachers, starting to question, do we know what's best? And are we teaching what we should be teaching? A little more tug between teachers and communities and parents. Will I be accused of teaching divisive concepts if I lead a discussion about why we're not going to use the N-word out loud in class when we read of mice and men? Will the kids go home and tell their parents what we talked about? Do kids still do that? Do parents still ask? Is this book worth the battle it might lead to, or should I just teach Fahrenheit 451 instead? Wouldn't that be ironic? And isn't that exactly what those who scream about CRT being taught want? For teachers to fear the repercussions and give in to temptation to just teach safe material instead, so that the status quo will keep on keeping on and generations of kids will continue to grow up in the dark about so much of the ugly side of America's history? Is this worth the fight it might bring? Well, obviously it's worth the fight, but am I mentally and emotionally up for this battle? This year especially. More importantly, will my Black students be uncomfortable if their white teacher leads this discussion in class? I know enough not to ask a Black student to speak on behalf of an entire race, but would it be okay to privately ask a Black student how they would feel about this discussion or that book? I recognize the fact that I'm a middle-aged white woman. I can't relate to what it's like to be Black in this country, and certainly not a teenager. So those conversations have always been important to me, and yet not necessarily comfortable. But recently, with the racial dissension, I guess, in our country, we've had some protests, which some people look upon favorably, some people criticize the protests. We've had all these court cases and the decisions in the court cases. We've had multiple feelings and perspectives on how those cases have turned out. And that's not unique to the country, that comes into the schools. It's gotten more challenging in recent years because there's been a growing movement among some state legislators who are concerned that schools might be teaching critical race theory. We are not, I can assure you. That is a higher level theory taught in law schools. What we are teaching is the history of America. And I think we're trying to teach honestly what has happened. And, it is uncomfortable. It's unpleasant. America hasn't always made the best decisions. America is made up of a whole lot of people, and no person is perfect. We are complex. Should I grade these 45 quick 10-point responses first? or tackle the 25 longer essays? Go back and forth between the two? Am I fair to every student when I don't grade an assignment all at once? Do I grade the first essays harder or easier than the last ones? Why do I feel guilty when I take points off for not capitalizing I or proper pronouns? Why don't they click on the squiggly lines and fix their typos and spelling and grammar errors when the computer's literally marking them for them? Why are they still making these basic mistakes? We've gone over them so many times. Do they just not care about their grades? Do they even go back and read my comments and look at why they've lost points? Is this an academic issue or a motivation issue or a self-worth issue? Do we need to do more lessons on catching these mistakes, or do I need to talk with them about the importance of the impression of themselves that they put out into the world? Is it unfair for a student to earn a C for a grade when the content of their work is probably at a B or even an A level, but their spelling and grammar mistakes are so ubiquitous and egregious that they lose points on every assignment? Is it asking too much of them to click on the dang squiggly lines? Teachers aren't afraid of accountability. I can defend what I teach and how I teach to anybody who, would like me to do so. But it makes it a little more stressful because that's where you start to second guess everything that you do and everything that you teach and how you interact with your students. And that puts a burden, I think, on the job that didn't used to be there. Does that kid who just smiled at me and said, "Hey, Ms. H," have any idea how much I needed that friendly smile right now? I'm a parent, so I have a student, a senior in high school. And so I'm nearing the end of my school days with her. I've tried to show appreciation for her teachers, but looking back on it, I recognize I probably haven't done enough. If you know a teacher, say thank you, write them a little thank you note. Just let them know that you see them and you value the work that they're doing. Why is the office calling down that long list of kids? Are they getting quarantined and sent home? Wait, they don't have to stay home anymore, but they have to wear masks now, right? So will I get a list of kids who are supposed to be wearing masks for 2 weeks? How am I going to keep track of that? How many more times can I say, "Pull your mask up over your nose," before I start inserting curse words into that sentence? Do I have time to run to the bathroom between classes? Risk someone being in the single stall teacher bathroom, or go to the student bathroom further away? Is that crying in the next stall? Hey, are you all right? Do you need to talk? Which class do you have right now? Can I walk you down to the guidance office? Will my class of freshmen be okay if I get there a little late? Can we settle down and get started, please? Where's your Chromebook? Why isn't it charged? Where's your charger? Why haven't you borrowed one from the library then? Is that yelling in the hallway? What's going on? Did one of you just call the other a bitch? Why are the kids behaving like this year? Is it COVID related, or just the stress of COVID plus all the other division and dissension in society that we're all contending with? Is Michael acting off today? Is he tired or just depressed? Should I pull him out in the hall and ask him if he's okay, or would it be worse to draw attention to him? Should I call home? Have his grades been slipping? Did he do the assignment that was due for me today? I do think that maybe people don't quite understand that it's stressful. I think from the outside looking in, the hours that you're in the school building, they don't look that bad, right? You have to be here at 7:15 and you leave at 2:45. That's not a very long day. That's a pretty nice schedule. I don't think a lot of people understand how much work goes into it outside of those hours. I don't think outside of teaching, a lot of people realize how you do get to know the students, and that makes it very difficult to set school aside because you go home thinking about those students. You worry about those students. You worry about the kid who didn't seem quite right today. You worry about the kid who their mom died in cancer. You worry about the kid who got broken up with last night. It's a small community in a classroom, and you do get to know those kids, and it's emotional. I think that's you can't just walk away from it. We know we're preparing these students to go off into a world that is tricky at best, treacherous, maybe even at worst. And so we want them to be prepared academically and socially and emotionally. Does Becky have her cell phone in her lap? Why isn't it in the slot with the others? Is it worth calling her out on it right now or later privately? In either way, do I want to risk setting her off when she's been doing so well and we seem to be forging a tentative relationship? Is it a big deal if she isn't actually using it? Or has she been using it and I just haven't seen it happen? Why isn't the Chromecast working? Why would it work last period and not this period? Is the internet down?
Why are we either freezing or frying? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to regulate the heat in our own rooms? Is this email for real? Are they kidding with this? Another meeting? Another book study? This year of all years? Don't we have enough to do? Can't they just give us more time to plan or collaborate with each other on the actual work that needs done?
We need to be concerned because teacher mental health affects the students. And I know teachers who are taking mental health days that never would have done that before. I started doing yoga, which I had done off and on prior to COVID hitting. But when we went remote, I figured out very quickly I needed to do something to relieve stress because it was just an almost unbearable situation.
Am I getting sick or am I just exhausted? Is my throat sore from talking so much today? Or because I'm coming down with something? Will they be able to find a sub if I stay home tomorrow? What am I teaching tomorrow? Is it something I can adapt easily for a sub, or will I need to come up with something new? How much will that impact my plans for the rest of the week?
We lower the qualifications necessary to be a substitute because we're so desperate. The teaching will suffer. And there's a lot more technique and skill involved than just reading books.
Why can't I be more of a type B teacher? Isn't it just easier to suck it up and go to school with a cold? But what if it's COVID? Is that an email from a parent? Do I have the energy to deal with that tonight? Why are they emailing me so late?
So we should be very concerned. There's the stress of COVID. There's the societal stress. There's the not feeling that we are respected, given that no other profession comes out of anywhere except teachers, right? I mean, in my classroom right now, or in some classroom right now in this country is future president of the United States. In some country right now or some classroom right now is a scientist who, might come up with some really great way to treat cancer. In these classrooms is the future. It's a cliche, teachers touch the future, but it is true.
Where's that info about that poetry contest? When was the deadline? How did I not know until now what a great writer Jane is? Oh no, Michael didn't do the assignment. Is it too late to call home tonight, or should I wait and call from school tomorrow? Do his parents work during the day? Do they support his use of he, him pronouns? Do I need to refer to him as Michelle when I talk to them? Why am I watching the news? Oh my God, another one? How many school shootings does that make this year? Is the legislature seriously going to try to pass that? Do they have any clue how that will impact teaching and learning? Why do the people with the power to address some of the problems always seem to arrive at solutions without asking educators for feedback? Don't they realize that only leads to more issues?
I think standardized tests have gotten out of control. There's so much more to a student than what one particular test score is on one particular day. And we've lost sight of that. Students are judged on those scores, teachers are judged on those scores, and there are so many factors that play into how a student performs on particular tests on a particular day. I think if we could eliminate or significantly decrease the standardized tests and the pressure that is attached to them, if we could just get back to learning for the sake of learning, we'd have more time to do more creative activities to learn. We would have more time in the elementary schools for play. Having lower class sizes would be one really tangible, major way that could impact teaching in a positive way. It's a bit terrifying to think about just immediately. If we have fewer teachers, that doesn't mean we have fewer kids. So the first thing that will happen is your class sizes will increase. I have a class right now of 25 students, and I have a class of 16 students. There is a big difference.
Are all teachers as overwhelmed and exhausted as I am?
When the blog went out there into the world, I started getting some feedback and some comments online. And so many of the comments were to the effect of, how did she get into my head? Or this is exactly what I deal with all day long, what I think all day long. It was a bit sad for me to realize that so many other teachers were feeling that overwhelmed and weighed down, but it was also validating that I wasn't alone. It's not just me. It's not just me getting too old for this gig, that even the younger teachers, maybe even especially the younger teachers, are struggling with the demands of the job.
Does anyone care what teachers are going through in this country? When is someone going to do something about it?